So this is a T-lit. It's what they call a top-lit updraft.
Okay.
So normally I did this morning, I filled it up to the top.
Oh yeah, there's one
And
here, way
you
over
start
far
the fire at the top. And we have a little bit of primary air coming in from down here that comes up through the feed stack from the bottom. So the fire initially, at least, is fed from underneath. And then once it's rolling, once it's cooking, this is secondary air. And this air comes up from these side holes up past here and then in.
Okay.
So that secondary air hits the gases that are coming off of the feed stack to give you a clean burn, and it goes up the stack from there. And you can adjust the stack up and down depending on the state of the burn or the quality of the feed stack. Or
All right. And this is the
result, right? That came out this morning. That's
great.
kind of.
And then what's in the bucket?
Okay, this bucket is a mix of biochar and compost. And this is just biochar that came out of my crusher. It has quite a bit of water in it, so it's not real dusty.
All right. And do you make these or?
New England Biochar makes these in Cape Cod.
Okay.
He happens to be my brother.
Oh, all right.
In his business, Bob Wells.
And how much does a unit
One of
run
these units is $750.
for? So,
It's all stainless steel.
great.
We're ready to take orders. Got them on the shelf, ready to ship.
Cool. How long has the company been around?
New England Biochar's been around 5-6 years.
Yeah, something like that.
More. He makes larger equipment, larger biochar production machines, like 2,000 pounds of wood,
Okay.
down to roughly 600 pounds of char at a time. He has a generator running on one of those that generates electricity.
Uh-huh.
So they will be self-sufficient, totally self-sufficient real soon.
Yep. Would not be surprised if Bob made something like that.
That's right, that's coming.
Eventually they're going to feed themselves.
On the other side, there are a couple of products that he sells.
Oh, take a look.
Got some other fun stuff to
We
look
got
at.
promotional opportunities here. So these are biochar products that one of his companies sells. This is out of North Carolina.
Oh. Do you know where in North Carolina?
Asheville.
Asheville. All three.
That's right. Yeah, this Char Grow is a separate company. So the New England Biochar makes equipment to make charcoal, to make the biochar. And then Char Grow is a second entity that mixes biochar with other ingredients, including worm castings and rock dust, and they introduce some special biology. They have a soil scientist staff there. They have some biology that they include in there that's real beneficial.
Great.
And they sell different products, including the granules.
And where, I guess, where does this get distributed to, or is it mainly direct from
It's mostly
the website?
direct at this point. There's not a lot of it up here. I'm starting to push it a little bit. I've sold a few bags to folks around the Rochester area.
And what's the pricing on these?
Pricing is $24.50 per bag. Both the bags are the same price, $24.50, and then the granules, I believe, are $18.95 for the.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is my Toucan Sam It's a retort, 30-gallon drum inside a 55-gallon drum. But it's mounted so that it pivots to make it easier to load and unload.
Oh, cool. So is it essentially a large version of that?
No, that's a different design. That you have to pay attention to that. You have to feed it. This one, you load it up, and you can light it. It'll burn until it's done. It'll cool itself off, and then you open it up and you get the charcoal out of it.
Cool.
This is not your backyard grilled charcoal. This is a high quality, burned at a higher temperature for a longer time charcoal.
Okay.
So it has no volatiles in it. It has none of the wood left in it. It's if you burn this in your backyard barbecue, you wouldn't get any smoke out of it.
Okay.
So you think of a fire that's burned down to coals, you don't get any smoke out of it to speak of. It's just going to sit there and glow until it turns to ash. Well, that's what this is. This is what's left at that point. Then we take this, it's a higher quality char, and grind it down to turn it into the size that's better for biochar. So I'm going to turn this on. I affectionately call this CCC. It's the charcoal crusher contraption. So it goes in here, goes round and round. Some of it gets crushed by the rollers, comes out here. Hopefully it's the right size. It'll go fall through the screen, and then we'll add some more. Now I keep it in water too. Keep the dust down.
As you can see, it generates a heck of a lot of dust everywhere.
So yeah, that's some of the downside, but we try to keep some water on there to and this was built with repurposed other things like bicycles and dishwasher, grill press, and 55-gallon drum. And this is how it comes out of the retort. This is a lot of chips and sawdust, so some of it will go right straight through the screen. So it doesn't need to go through the crusher. The big pieces will you have to cut that out. Obviously this thing's got some ways to go.
But what I really like about this is that it comes apart so easily. It fit in the back of my truck. And you can make about 10 gallons of biochar in an hour and a half, which is funny because the garden scale Kontiki, which is much bigger, you can make probably 4 times that much in 2 hours. But so it takes a while, but this is really meant for a cooking size kiln. And it looks just like another one.
But I love it, and it mixes the air. So this is very thought through. This part.
Yeah.
So you'll
Do you have a cover for it or not?
I do. I didn't bring it. It's just like a vinyl cover. So
It's not metal?
no,
You don't cover it when you burn it?
definitely not. You know, the jury's out on that. So we prefer a water quench or some sort of liquid quench. That word. Could be the beer or the wine that I just drank, but the thing I like about these most is it has the hose here, so you can quench from the bottom up. We don't have hose here,
That's
but
interesting.
it is, because then you have absolutely no smoke. But in Nepal and India and other places like that, what they're really finding is if you quench with nutrient-rich materials like urine, that's really activating the biochar as you quench it. So they did trials over there in various different farms with different soils on probably a dozen different crops. And when you quench it with urine and then you blend it with manure, they had yield responses of 100 to 300%. It was amazing. So air quenching it, the jury's kind of out on that one, with the question being, is that creating things you might not want in your biochar? I've heard yes and I've heard no on that, but I no longer do that.
So air quenching, producing, like keeping some of the
Snuffing it.
toxins in.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I really like the open burn. And I have a couple of T-Luds, big ones. Have you ever used those?
I've seen them used and I've helped people use them, but I don't have any. I mean, I have a little tiny one, but
I have the little one
my
too.
time frame is like
The difference in a T-Lud, which you fill it to the top and then it burns down to what, maybe 20 or 30%. But then you have the issue of quenching, and sometimes, in my kilns anyway, you quench on the top and it's not all done. Then you tip it over and there's still flames in the lower regions. But with this, there's no question of it being quenched. You just fill the water right up here. And the other thing is, with that quench water, the pH is really high. So, like, not bleach high, but 11. So you can use that quench water for certain things, like if you have acidic soils, it's going to help temporarily. So a lot of nice benefits.
you basically quench it and leave it in there, or you capture that water.
Yeah, you can. I just let it sit overnight, actually. So it's sitting there, and then you can drain it out. I mean, I've drained it onto my lawn. There's no negative impact. The other nice thing with this, the thing you need to know with the Kontiki is, it's all about starting the fire right. Okay, so generally there's a bit of an airflow issue because it's deep.
Right.
So you gotta build up this kind of log cabin-y thing to get air circulating. But once you've created a bed of embers, anytime,
Loaded stuff on
right,
top.
anytime you start to see ashy bits, that's when you want to sort of starve that part of the fire, or actually attract it to more energy, which is in the new feedstock. So, but it still keeps carbonizing. It just doesn't go to ash. And I didn't believe this. I was like, that just doesn't make sense to my non-scientific brain. But it works. It's an amazing technology.
So basically, because you're burning from the bottom, when you're quenching it, you're quenching heat.
Yes. And so,
So there isn't any unburned or
generally not.
unpyrolyzed material.
So what I would say with that is, it's important to understand feedstocks differ, and not all feedstocks are good for this kiln. If you have a really dense feedstock, like
Like black locust.
well, it's not so much
Should we put it in
the biomass, it's the particle size of the biomass. So if you have cherry pits, not going to happen. Even with wood chips, there's not enough airflow for it to keep
You
going.
need a screen.
Yeah, you need some of this stuff that allows a little bit of airflow to keep the combustion going. And the other thing you need to know is, in the very beginning, your goal is to create a burning bed of embers, right? And then when you're kind of mid-flow, you can stick some of this thicker stuff. In this kiln, you probably couldn't go any thicker than this. But once you get up here, your burn time is smaller and smaller. So you want to have enough time for it to actually carbonize. So sometimes if you put something in too big, too late, then you're going to break this and still see a little bit of the wood in the middle.
Right, you save that for the next one.
That's what I do. Yeah. Easy enough.
So how hot can you get this?
This kiln, I haven't used a heat gun on this, but on my other garden Kontiki, which is 4 times that, it gets up to 700 degrees. Easily. And
So
that's
you're
because
getting
of
a
this.
decent biochar product.
It's a very high temperature biochar. So that's not always a good thing, but in many cases it's a good thing.
Right.
And it's, the clean burn, I've seen many videos of people using this kind of kiln and others, and it's smoky. And that smoke is either because of high moisture moisture content feedstock, or windy conditions. I mean, you really have to know your feedstock and how to feed it for this kind of kiln. So it's not, it's easy to learn, but I mean, the first few times I burn a new material, mostly I'm using this for my honeysuckle infusion. You know,
There's tons of it on
Oh
the
my
freeway. I was totally amazed when I came through this morning.
but something like Phragmites is going to go up like that.
Right.
So the only time to use that kind of feedstock is in the very beginning to build your bed, or at the very end. You know, when you've already started quenching, that doesn't need a lot of time to carbonize. You definitely don't want to put thick stuff in at the end.
Is there any kind of wood you can't use, like black locust or walnut?
A lot of this is walnut, dead walnut. So you can certainly use that.
I heard like the walnut itself is poisonous.
That juglone,
It kills other.
yeah, it's going to get rid of that sort
It's
of
allelopathic.
What's that?
It's allelopathic, so it prevents other stuff from growing underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Nothing goes
tons
under
of
a walnut
walnut.
tree. I don't know about the wood itself.
I think you're burning off most of that stuff,
Black.
especially in a kiln that goes up to
Yeah.
600-700 degrees.
I heard.
Easier than to crush the steak.
Okay, so this is really, you know, for your garden or
Yeah,
you know,
it's
a
small
scale.
It's a great way
Yeah.
to start, you know.
Oh,
I
it
mean,
is
I
great.
can't make tons at a time, but
No.
you know, for the backyard,
it's cool.
it's great.
It
think
also
it's
helps
great.
with odors and things.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's great.
Today I'm selling for $50. I have them on Amazon for $69.95 and my website for $59.95.
What's the technical philosophy to this thing? Why does it work? I mean, just because it keeps the stuff
make-
from burning down completely?
To make biochar, you have to rob the oxygen from the fire.
Okay.
This restricts oxygen from coming in and turning it all to ash. If you
Right.
if it was wide open, that would be just a bunch of ashes.
Right.
So you're kind of burning things halfway.
I see.
If you
Burning
wanna
in the
think of it
absence
that
of
way.
oxygen.
In the absence of
Pyrolyzing, right?
Because they're using the everything else off gases.
But it's the convenience of the non-flammable materials is really and just the convenience that you've come up with to say, hey, this is going to fit anybody's
Well,
fireplace.
you know, it's
makes
something
sense.
that a lot of people I think
Yeah.
can use, you know, that
Yeah.
don't want to get into all kinds of complicated ways of making it.
I think it's a great way to educate. I think, you know, just the name I think is a great name. And I think people need to be educated about biochar more than
Well,
anything.
we're trying.
That's a problem.
You know, it's
There isn't
it's
actually
an ongoing.
a residential market
That's why
for
we're here.
creating biochar burners yet.
But this is it, and it makes all the sense in the world. If people have to say, you know what? I mean, obviously it's going to take away from people who are going and buying biochar at I don't know whatever for their house. If you
This
have
is a small.
plants.
This creates such a small amount.
completely.
It's not, you know, it's good for that type of use. And until they get a residential burner that pyrolyzes your biomass,
Yeah.
Well, you
people
know, a
can't
lot of
produce
people
it in
don't
a
need
great
that
amount,
much.
but this is
You
a
know,
small.
If you just have a few
Right. You don't need that much.
potted plants and
Right.
garden beds, you know, you have 10 fires or so, and
Where you really like your cherry
It's a
tomatoes or
significant
something,
difference.
you know, give them a little boost.
yeah.
Start with the crops you really like. You like to make tomato sauce or something, you know.
Cool. So what's I guess how much does it make, or what's the time period?
Well, I mean, it's been running for, what time is it now? I don't know what time it is. 2 o'clock?
2, yeah.
It's probably been running for a couple hours, 2 hours maybe. And it will make about 10% char,
Okay.
or between 10 and 30% depending on the temperature of the process spot.
Okay.
So I believe if we run it, like usually I'll start in the morning and we'll run it, and we can make a couple hours, you know, 4 or 5 hours, like between 8 and 10 pounds of char.
Okay.
So it'll run. It's meant to run continuously.
Yeah.
At the shop, we have it hooked up to some big feed bins, and we'll just dump in there. And this right here is It's it was built to do human waste or places that don't have good sanitation. This is a grinder. It goes in the grinder there. This article talks about it.
Okay.
It grinds it up. It sends it into that cup, and manageable pieces. It goes through that feed auger into the pot, drops into the pot, burns, and char is pulled into this ash box or char box through two screws like augers, and then the exhaust goes up through the catalyst here in the middle.
Cool. So where is this based out of?
We're from Putnam, Connecticut.
Okay.
The gases come up from the top. Right here, inside. And it will burn off any extra volatiles. And it goes through the heat exchanger